Imagine a building so powerful that entire towns form around it. A place where cowboys, travelers, performers, and dreamers gathered
We
every
can't
night
wait any
under
longer.
glowing
The
lanterns,
storm's getting
chasing
worse.
connection and
Then we
forgetting
move
the
now.
outside
It's
world.
too risky.
But as the crowds grew, something unseen moved with them, carried in shared cups, crowded air, and sleepless nights that never seemed to end. People laughed, gambled, and sang, while slowly walking into risks they didn't
Woo-wee, that's a full
understand yet.
house, boys.
The saloons
I'll
of
be damned if you
1880
got me.
weren't just social
Luck's on your
spaces.
side tonight.
They were pressure cookers of secrets, exhaustion, and invisible threats that shaped the dark history of the frontier forever. Before we uncover what history tried to hide, subscribe to Unseen Evidence, because some truths were never meant to be found, and tell me where you're watching this from. I'm curious to know. Let's continue. The doors never truly stopped moving, even when the street outside fell silent and the desert wind slowed to a whisper. Because in the frontier towns of the 1880s, the saloon was more than a place to drink. It was a living organism made of laughter, exhaustion, secrets, and survival. A structure that drew people toward it like lantern light pulls insects from the darkness, promising warmth while quietly hiding the risks within. And anyone arriving from miles away could spot it before anything else, because the glow of its windows meant life, meant noise, meant a chance to forget the long empty miles behind them. Yet what waited inside was never as simple as it appeared. The floors carried the memory of thousands of footsteps. The air hung heavy with smoke and stories, and the bartender moved with a rhythm, learned through repetition rather than rest, wiping glasses endlessly. Though cleanliness was more illusion than reality, because water was scarce, soap was valuable, and hygiene was a concept still struggling to find its place in a world rushing faster than understanding could keep up. And so strangers shared tables, shared drinks, shared air without thinking about what traveled unseen between them, while musicians played familiar tunes that seemed to erase time itself, encouraging people to stay longer than they intended, to talk louder than they should, and to forget that the outside world continued
Woo-wee,
turning
that's a full
beyond those
house,
swinging
boys.
doors.
Well, I'll be
And in
damned if
every
you got
corner
me.
sat a different
Luck's on your
version of
side
the
tonight.
frontier.
Woo-wee,
Gamblers
that's a full
studying
house,
cards
boys.
like
Well, I'll be
philosophers,
damned. You got me.
travelers exchanging
Luck's on your
rumors
side
as if
tonight.
they were currency, workers watching quietly while memorizing every detail, because knowledge inside the saloon was power. Knowing who arrived, who left, who looked nervous, who spoke too confidently, and who tried too hard to blend into the background. And although the saloon felt alive with possibility, there was always a subtle tension beneath the surface. A feeling that something invisible moved through the crowd, not danger in the dramatic sense people imagine when thinking about the Old West, but a quieter uncertainty, born from overcrowded spaces and constant movement, because towns grew quickly and infrastructure lagged behind, meaning waste disposal was inconsistent, fresh water unreliable, and sleeping quarters often shared by more people than they were meant to hold, turning comfort into compromise and rest into negotiation. And yet, people kept coming because isolation was worse than risk, loneliness heavier than uncertainty, and the saloon offered connection even when it carried hidden costs. And among the regulars were those who understood this balance deeply, individuals who navigated the atmosphere, like sailors reading the tide, knowing when to laugh, when to step back, when to leave before exhaustion turned celebration into regret, while newcomers saw only excitement, unaware that the same closeness that created friendship also allowed illness to move quietly from person to person, especially during colder months when doors closed tightly against the wind and air grew stale with every breath. But conversations never slowed, because information moved faster here than anywhere else. Stories of distant towns arriving before newspapers, rumors shaping decisions long before facts could catch up, and behind the bar deals were made that influenced entire communities. Partnerships formed over shared drinks, disagreements softened by music, and occasionally identities rewritten as people chose new names and new pasts, because the frontier allowed reinvention in ways older cities could not. Yet anonymity carried consequences, as accountability faded, and habits developed without oversight, food handled quickly without strict standards, glasses reused without thorough washing, and sleeping arrangements arranged based on necessity rather than health, creating an environment that felt vibrant while quietly challenging the resilience of everyone inside. And the workers who kept the saloon running often saw the truth most clearly, moving through crowds while noticing subtle changes others ignored. A familiar face missing from its usual seat, a performer losing energy night after night, a traveler arriving with stories of sickness spreading elsewhere. And though understanding of disease remained limited, there was a growing awareness that certain patterns repeated themselves, that crowds could bring not only joy but also strain. And so routines developed as people tried to protect themselves in small ways, opening windows when possible, stepping outside for fresh air, choosing who to sit beside carefully. But the pace of the saloon rarely slowed long enough for caution to dominate, because night followed day with relentless consistency. Lanterns lit again before the memory of yesterday's exhaustion faded, and the building seemed to breathe with every new arrival, absorbing voices, emotions, and secrets, until dawn arrived and revealed a different side of the story. The quiet aftermath when chairs were lifted, floors swept, and workers paused just long enough to feel the weight of what had passed through the room. Because in those moments, the illusion faded and reality emerged, showing the wear on walls, the stains on tables, and the fatigue behind smiles. Yet even then, the saloon held a strange kind of hope, because despite its flaws, it brought people together in a landscape defined by distance, offering connection where isolation might otherwise have won. And perhaps that was its greatest contradiction, that a place known for risk could also provide belonging, that an environment shaped by hardship could still create memories people carried for the rest of their lives. And as towns evolved and modern systems replaced old practices, many saloons disappeared or transformed, but their legacy remained woven into the idea of gathering spaces themselves. Reminders that history is rarely clean or simple, that the places we romanticize often held complexities hidden behind warm light and lively music. And even today, when we imagine the Old West, we still hear the echo of those swinging doors, moving slowly, as if guided by hands long gone, inviting us to step closer, to listen carefully, and to understand that beneath every legend lies a quieter truth waiting to be told. A story not of dramatic endings but of everyday survival, adaptation, and the fragile balance between comfort and consequence that defined life inside the saloons of 1880.